Couch Potato Diary. We start another week here on the program. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you all very much for listening. If you are on podcast form, please remember to rate, review, subscribe wherever you can. If you're listening out the window that I realized I just left open, well, the show is called Couch Potato Diary. You can find it wherever podcasts are available. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and like this video. Those are always appreciated. Coming up on the show today, it is a busy one as the UFC has a new middleweight champion. The Toronto Blue Jays have a new swagger, and we have a new data point for everything in the NFL, which means new things to panic about. Or not. We will get into that as in what I am calling now Reasonable Reaction Monday. We are going to get into that. We are going to get into the Blue Jays and, of course, into the Ultimate Fighting Championship as well. So, a lot to get to. As always, if you disagree or completely agree with anything that I say and just really feel the need to let me know, you can find me on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm at Primetime Klein, twitch.tv/PrimetimePK, and you can email the show, couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. Just quickly off the top, want to give a shout out, not that they need it, but Spruce Meadows went to the Spruce Meadows Masters, over the weekend. I've never been to Spruce Meadows for an actual show jumping event. It's always just been for Cavalry FC, and what a facility they have out there. It just absolutely stunning. And you know it when you go out there for the soccer, but holy hell, can you tell the amount of work and the world-class facility that there is out at Spruce Meadows. It is unbelievable. So if you have an opportunity to go check it out, could not recommend it anymore. Also, we'll get into it a little bit more, but with a lot of the stuff here in the NFL, I haven't been able to watch a whole lot of football lately. You can't really tell because I got the natural light coming in. Your boy got some sun over the weekend as I was at the our slow pitch playoffs. Unfortunately, our team did not do very well, but it was a whole lot of fun. So a lot of the football talk today is going to be, and I will come right out and say that a lot of this football talk today is going to be box score scouting. We'll be watching a lot of these games throughout the week, but just wanted to put that out there. So, longer than normal open, but let's get into it now as we talk about the National Football League. All right, let's begin our NFL talk here today, as week one is now in the books, and I'm calling this Reasonable Reaction Monday. We're going to break these into three categories. Confirmation bias, wait and see, and things I've changed my opinion on. So I think they're all pretty obvious, but we will start with confirmation bias. Well, what things that I think coming into the regular season that have now been completely confirmed for me, and I'm absolutely right, nothing will change on these over the next 17 weeks of the regular season, into the postseason, and on through the Super Bowl out in Las Vegas, Nevada. So that's a little bit of fun, but basically it's things that I was right on based off of week one. And just working through in no particular order, Zay Flowers with the Baltimore Ravens appears to be the real deal. And maybe this is more that the Ravens offense in general, and this is week one against the Houston Texans. We were never going to get that, but the passing offense kind of ran through Zay Flowers in this game. And there was not a whole lot of resistance from the Houston Texans, at least from what it seems. Again, if you missed it in the opening, because I'm kind of clipping these on YouTube, I haven't been able to watch any of these, so I will fully admit a lot of this is box score scouting, but I'm interested to see how much of this output from Zay Flowers here in week one is what the Texans weren't doing, what the Ravens were doing, what the other receivers weren't doing. So I'll be interested to see how this all goes. But for week one, you have to feel very good about Zay Flowers' involvement in this passing offense. And again, an offense with the Ravens that we were projecting was going to have a much better year. On the other side, the Texans suck. And we kind of knew that coming in. We projected that. They are one of the ones we absolutely hammered the under on their win total. And so far, so good on the Houston Texans side. Cleveland taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, and I am quite excited about Nick Chubb's involvement in the offense. We had talked about how he is one of the most talented most talented running backs in the league, and how many opportunities he was now going to have in that Cleveland backfield, and he did. 4 pass catches out of the backfield, ran the ball a ton. He was one of the high opportunity players of the week. We'll get to that a little bit later on. I feel very good about the call that Nick Chubb is going to be really, really dynamite for fantasy football this season. Tampa Bay taking on the Minnesota Vikings. The Bucks come away with the win. That was one of our big calls of the week. We had Tampa Bay plus 5.5. We had them on the money line. I think it ended up being plus 205 by the time we clicked on that one. This Tampa Bay team is better than people were giving them credit for. Baker Mayfield, he's not going to come out and win them a bunch, but I think he is at a point where I don't know if he's going to lose a ton of games for them either. So I do have a bit of a feel that this might be Geno Smith 2.0 for this season, and he came out in week 1 and at least put up the numbers to come away with a victory. On the Minnesota side, a lot of concerns about regression from a Vikings team that basically feasted in one-score games a year ago. And I think we feel very good that it's been confirmed. While we do think Tampa Bay is better than people were giving them credit for, it's not a team you should be losing to on week 1. So the Vikings are in about as much trouble as we thought. Same thing goes for Carolina as they lose to the Atlanta Falcons. That was another win total that I was stunned was as high as it was. And so the investment we made on that one feels pretty good at this point. Yes, it does. Not a whole lot to say on that. Jacksonville with a win over the Indianapolis Colts. I think this is the one that we take away from this is Calvin Ridley is good. So there, locked in. But he looked every bit of what you would expect him to look like if he hadn't missed the last 2 seasons, basically. But he basically looked like he picked up right where he left off. And this is one I am concerned a little bit about the pick I made on Jacksonville not winning their division because they now have a 1-game lead on the Tennessee Titans. And Calvin Ridley looks as good as I thought he was going to coming into this one. So he was phenomenal. San Francisco with a dominant win over Pittsburgh. And this one, it's locked in and it wasn't a whole lot of concern. But the San Francisco 49ers are one of the best teams in the league. And that was absolutely confirmed in week 1. But another part that was confirmed, I was a little skeptical on what the Pittsburgh Steelers were selling coming out of the preseason. And look, this is one of the top teams in the league that they lost to. But it really did show that the Pittsburgh Steelers are not, I think, at the level that people thought they were going to be at. They still might be a good team, for sure. Might still be a good team. But they ain't very good, and they got run over by a great team on Sunday afternoon. Same thing goes Denver Broncos. This show was skeptical of any type of hype around the Broncos. We took the under at 8.5 wins, and if you can't be beating that Vegas team, that's going to be a problem. So, albeit that they're one of the more fascinating teams to watch as this goes along to see what does Sean Payton do with Russell Wilson. But for right now, what else do we have here? Oh, the Miami offense is really good. There, again. But I had said coming in that, and the concerns about the Miami offense were not solved from week 1 because people's main concerns are how healthy is Tua Tagovailoa going to be. For 1 week, seemed pretty good. At least the numbers do. And again, I'm going to go back and try to watch as many of these as I can, but those numbers are electric. And what we said coming into the season is, yes, that there is a chance that Tua gets hit and he could get injured. That's the same for everyone in the National Football League. It is a contact sport. I played slow pitch over the weekend. Someone tore tendons in their finger. That shit happens, man. So if your biggest thing is, oh, well, he might get hurt. So might fucking everybody. And for right now, the Miami Dolphins are pretty healthy. And for right now, the Miami Dolphins look pretty good after a big win on Sunday. Also, feeling pretty right about the Green Bay Packers. We said that they could win the division outright. And holy boy, did they look like it after 1 week. At least again, from the scoreboard. But to put up those points on the Chicago Bears with an offense that felt a little banged up coming into this game, they have to be feeling ecstatic about where they are at. And I am feeling ecstatic about where they are at for my pick for winning the division and pick for going over their win total. So feeling like my bias is pretty confirmed on the Green Bay Packers after 1 week. Anyway. Into the Sunday Nighter, and we knew Dallas's defense was excellent. There wasn't a whole lot of pushback on that. That's not a breaking news thing from anything that I said. Dallas is just really fucking good, and Micah Parsons is the best defensive player in the league. And another thing, the Giants aren't as good as people were saying they were. That was one thing that I was saying, like, yes, last year was great, and proved me completely wrong. They're still not as good, I don't think. I think they had a cupcake schedule a year ago. They don't exactly have a tough one either. But that is my biases that have been confirmed through 1 week in the NFL. Now, what am I waiting and seeing on? What alternate evidence was brought up that you know what? keeping an eye on that. The first one is Dameon Pierce. I think he's extremely talented as a running back for the Houston Texans. The problem is they're going to be losing in a lot of games, and he did not have a whole lot for volume in this. I believe it was 9 carries or 11 carries or something along those lines. If that's going to continue, that's going to continue to be a problem for Dameon Pierce. And so my eyes are open a little bit at just how bad the Houston Texans are and just how much that might affect Dameon Pierce. He's probably going to have to be a bit more involved in the passing game for him to be the viable fantasy option that I thought he was going to be and the steal that I thought he was going to be at different points this year. Cleveland and Cincinnati, just in general, I'm prepared to say that I'm wrong on them. A lot of my feelings, strong feelings about Cleveland are around their piece of shit quarterback. And I have to watch the game to see how much of it he actually did, because the stat line doesn't absolutely blow you away, but that's a pretty lopsided score against a team that a lot of people have going to at least the AFC Championship game, if not further, in the loaded AFC. And for Cincinnati, those numbers are ugly, man. Those numbers are really, really ugly. So my eyebrows are raised at what could happen with the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns going forward. Alexander Mattison got stuffed in Minnesota's loss against Tampa Bay. And a couple of years ago, Tampa Bay was impossible to run against. I don't think they're that now, but I'll be interested to see how much of that was ineptitude in the offense, how much of that was a lack of availability, and just what was the cause of that. But the eyebrows are raised at what might happen with Alexander Mattison going forward. The Tennessee Titans, I put a lot of faith into them to go out and win this football game and win their division. I have them as AFC South champion. Only putting up 15 points against New Orleans does not seem AFC South champion-y to me. So a little bit concerned at some of the numbers, especially Treylon Burks didn't put up the biggest numbers in that game. So interested. Look, it's a good New Orleans defense. And quite frankly, a New Orleans defense I didn't give enough credit to when doing our season previews this year. So that could be I don't think I put that one down in the change column, but that could be one, because I did not give this Dallas Allen defense nearly enough credit for what they could be able to do, but they absolutely shut them down, at least defensively. Offensively, that's not the biggest showing, I guess, statistically. The Raiders in general, that's a close win that they were able to grind out. None of the stats seemed eye-popping, and defensively they held an offense that had question marks around to 16 points. Like, that's not... It seems fine. They struggle against some of the worst offenses in the NFL last year, so even if Denver's is that, it's nice that the Raiders didn't, from a Raider fan standpoint anyway. So I'm just willing to be wrong that the Raiders might not be the worst team in the National Football League this season. Hey, they're number 1 in the AFC West right now. DeAndre Swift in Philadelphia. I continue to think that this is an incredibly talented running back, and at least through 1 week, that this is now 2 teams that have not given him the opportunities that one of the top running backs in the NFL would seem to get. So that is one where eyebrows have absolutely been raised, and concern on my part, because my fantasy team, one of them, dropped Kenny Gainwell this week, and he seemed to be the lead toucher for Philadelphia. Now, I do think that's going to change as the weeks go on, so that's why this isn't fully in the change one, because I think Philadelphia is going to have a rotating door, but I thought it would be DeAndre Swift getting most of it, and then a rotating door kind of behind him, instead of Smith being rotated out the door. That was concerning, at least through 1 week. I have been very hard in my stance that I don't think Mac Jones is very good. But 300 plus passing yards on a Philadelphia Eagles defense will at least put you on the wait list for things that my mind could change on. So that certainly is something, at least, that I'm going to be looking at, is this Pats offense a little bit better than I thought? And is the Chicago offense a little bit worse than I thought? I picked them as one of the fantasy offenses that I was looking at this season. They threw the ball a ton. They just didn't get any yards out of it. Khalil Herbert was not very involved. Now, they were down in this game, so that's another one. There's a lot of these games. A lot of things to answer from actually watching, so I'm looking forward to getting down and going through a lot of this. But yeah, that was an interesting one to see how much trouble they had, at least statistically, against the Green Bay Packers. This one's pretty easy. It's from a matchup that we saw on Sunday afternoon, the Rams and the Seahawks. Do the Seahawks suck and are the Rams good? Both questions I will need to have answers for over the coming weeks. Is this just a bad game for Seattle or what? But that's a real bad game for Seattle. That's a real good game for the LA Rams. Unless they were just like playing rope-a-dope on all of us with the whole Matt Stafford isn't clicking with some of the young guys, because some of the young guys put up numbers in that matchup. So interested to see that. Also, from the Jacksonville-Indianapolis game, Travis Etienne, 23 opportunities. That's I believe it's targets and runs. And we said coming in that Etienne could be a factor in this game because of the vulnerability that the Colts have against the run. For someone who was saying all preseason that Tank Bigsby is going to be the number one running back against Jacksonville, week one didn't get off, or for Jacksonville, sorry, week one didn't get off to a great start, although Bigsby does get into the end zone, he also fumbles the football. But this was a matchup that Etienne was going to thrive in anyway, but the amount with which he thrived was a little concerning for someone who was not on the Etienne bandwagon. So I'll be interested to see what it looks like going forward for Jacksonville. And Brian Daboll, I think he is a brilliant offensive mind, but the NFL now has a full year on this whole situation, and they're going to have a much more difficult schedule than they had last year. If you do not make any kind of adjustments, which it looked like for week one, they didn't, and they got the hell beat out of them. I am, again, putting Brian Daboll on the wait list for, oh boy, that this might not be good. I think my camera just jumped there. This might not be good for the Giants this season. And things that I have changed my mind on already in week one. Tyler Algier's involvement in the Atlanta backfield. We saw on Thursday night, David Montgomery had a boatload of the responsibility while Jahmyr Gibbs just kind of flashed in and out. Algier gets a lot of the responsibility in Atlanta, while Bijan Robinson gets 11 carries and was active in the passing game. Now, I do want to see kind of how this balances off a little bit, but I think Algier, instead of just being an absolute zero in the offense out in Atlanta, he's going to have much more of the offense than I was expecting. And according to Pro Football Focus, Bijan Robinson does get into 26 of his 33 snaps in the first three quarters. So they get a bit of a lead in the fourth, and Algier comes in to help ice it away. But Bijan Robinson was a big factor in the first three quarters of this game. So I don't think it's going to just be like the Detroit situation, but Algier's going to have much more a role in this offense. And the problem, I think Bijan might be affecting Drake London more than Tyler Algier. I thought Drake London going to take another step this year, but one of the frustrations we had around Kyle Pitts was they weren't getting him the ball a lot. They didn't get him the ball a lot here, but Drake London, just one target. I am already conceding I might be wrong on him taking a step forward, and it's not because of him, but it's this offense. They were very quick to look to Bijan Robinson apparently in the passing game, as he had a 33% target rate. So when he was out there, he was getting looked at, and that's going to take away targets from a Drake London. We will see how this offense goes later on, but that is one that I'm absolutely ringing alarm bells on. I underestimated Michael Pittman as the number one receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. I think he has number two receiver written all over him, but right now he is the number one target there, and he had a field day against the Jacksonville Jaguars with a quarterback playing his first NFL game. I feel like that's only going to get better, so I am admitting I was wrong to underestimate Michael Pittman's value this season. A couple from the Washington backfield. I thought Antonio Gibson was going to shine and Brian Robinson was going to not. Robinson had some of the most opportunities in the NFL this week, and Gibson had 4 touches. So I am already admitting I had a completely wrong read on how things were going to go in the Washington backfield. I did not state enough, I don't think, how big of a concern this LA Chargers defense is going to be, because you have a defensive-minded coach, and all my eyes had all the stars in them, all the lightning bolts in them for what this offense could look like with Justin Herbert and Kellen Moore teaming up. What I forgot about, or maybe didn't give enough credit to, because there's Bosa, there's Derwin James. How could this defense be bad? Oh, it is bad. Now, it's against a very good Miami offense, so things could bounce back, but that was real rough in a game that was right there for the Chargers to win. And so for a team that I have winning the AFC West and going over their win total, that was a concerning look for week one. Also, on the Carolina Panthers, Miles Sanders, I thought he was a beneficiary of a real good offensive line, and maybe he was. A real good Philadelphia offensive line, but maybe he was, but he's going to get a lot of looks out in Carolina. 24 opportunities this week. He is going to be someone who I think I should have had a little bit higher up on my list for fantasy football running backs because he looks pretty good. And the Giants, I don't know if I just forgot or if I underestimated. The Giants' offensive line is going to be a problem this year. Now, you're not going to face a pass attack or a pass rush attack, like the Dallas Cowboys every week, but you're going to face them one more time, and you're going to face the Giants a couple of times. And the Commanders have guys who can get to the quarterback as well. If this offensive line doesn't step up, it's going to be a problem, and I think it already is. So a couple of things have already made me change my mind on the New York Giants. As we get ready for Monday Night Football coming up tonight, I do have the Bills to cover. I believe I got it at 1.5. I think this is going to be a really interesting game, and I think there's going to be a lot of panic out of one area of New York, whether it's Buffalo or whether it is, well, there'll be a lot of panic coming out of the Meadowlands if the Jets lose as well. But one of these teams that has Super Bowl aspirations is going to be 0-1 after this week, and I think there's going to be a lot of panic about it after getting the national spotlight on Monday night. So it should be a lot of fun to follow that one today. And going to be a lot of fun to check in on some of these football stories throughout the year and see what we were right on and what maybe I needed to change my mind on a little bit. But that's the story from the National Football League. Moving to baseball, and this weekend could not have gone any better for the Toronto Blue Jays results-wise. It could have. Like, the Rangers could have got swept by the A's. But realistically, this couldn't have gone any better. The Blue Jays move into the second wildcard spot, which, I will admit, isn't as advantageous as maybe you would like to think, because a series against the Minnesota Twins feels a whole lot better than a series against the Tampa Bay Rays at Tropicana Field. But neither here nor there. This is a Blue Jays weekend that you absolutely love. They sweep the Royals. They gain ground on Texas. Like I said, they move into second place in the wild card right now in the American League. And the reason second in the wild card is good is, it's obvious. You have a bit of a bumper there now. The team below you, if they pass you, doesn't mean you're out of the playoffs. So it's just nice to comfortably be in, and comfortably in air quotes, because nothing is comfortable about where the Blue Jays are at right now, but it is nice to see at least a little bit of wiggle room for Toronto. And this was a weekend where a lot of players stepped up in a big-time way. And look, would you have liked the Blue Jays to dominate the Kansas City Royals in much more convincing fashion than a couple of late rallies to really put teams away, or in the case of Sunday, needing 3 consecutive wild pitches after 2 walks with 2 outs? Yeah, would have been nice to just win 11-2, 11-2, 11-2, and just beat the bejesus out of them. But at this point, with 20-some-odd games left, holy crap, will you take a sweep going into your biggest series of the year, going up against the Texas Rangers. So from a Toronto standpoint, results-wise, couldn't have been better. And you love it because so many players stepped up. Obviously, Davis Schneider, that's the second time I've done that. I got CFL DBs on the mind. Davis Schneider is obviously the GOAT, and everyone loves him. But you had some big names stepping up, and it starts with the starting pitching. Kikuchi, excellent. Gosman, brilliant. Barrios, phenomenal. All 3 of them, excellent across the board. Gosman was in rare form on Saturday afternoon, just completely shutting down Kansas City, with the exception of that hanging breaking ball that got hit to the moon. But aside from that, he was just tremendous the whole way through. The bullpen had a couple of speed wobbles in there, but the starting pitching was excellent, setting up the Blue Jays for success. And then you got some key hits, which again, it sucks that you need them against Kansas City. You would like 3 very, very convincing, comfortable wins, but you didn't get it. This Blue Jays team has been lacking big hits all season long, and they got big plays from their stars when they needed it. On Friday and on Sunday, it was Kevin Kiermaier. And on Saturday, it was George Springer. We'll talk about Springer first. He comes up with a 2-home-run day. He drove in the first 3 runs of the ball game for Toronto, and he is someone who this Blue Jays team, I think, can go from very good to great if he is setting the table. And he obviously had a rough month right around the trade deadline, but his last 30 days, it's 14 extra base hits, last 31 days, 14 extra base hits. He's driven in over 20. He is back to being George Springer, and they need him for this stretch drive. This is why they got him in here. With all due respect to those people who were saying that he could be the biggest detriment to this team and they're going to need to try to ship him out, the Blue Jays did not acquire him for him to be awesome in August, man. They brought him in to light things up in September and October, and he came up in some big situations. I have a slight concern about some of the stumbles he had defensively this weekend, but overall, offensively, he was great. And then Kevin Kiermaier on Friday and on Sunday, he comes up with the triple on Friday that just lights the Blue Jays world on fire. And then Sunday, he breaks the 2-2 deadlock on a home run on a breaking pitch, kind of middle in, that he's able to take out of the ballpark. The Blue Jays have got 150% of what they could have even possibly imagined from Kiermaier this season. Best case scenario is way in the rear view. He has been excellent. And if you want to bring him back on like a 2-year deal, maybe two with an option or something along those lines, I think he is worth it to have back. He is the exact veteran, the exact type of force out in center field that this Blue Jays team absolutely needs. He has been that in spades this year for Toronto, and I think that you could not have asked for more from him, and I think it seems like he loves playing in Toronto, at least on the surface. So it would be great to have him back for a bit of an extended run. And just quickly, on that note, you look at what the Blue Jays have been able to get over the last few years out of like veterans. I don't want to say off the scrap heap, but not the top level guys, right? Go back to Robbie Ray, what they were able to transform him into. They even got another pretty good contract for Steven Matz. And now offensively, Whit Merrifield went from kind of being just like a random, why are they even bothering, to a guy who was an all-star this year and has come up with some big hits for the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are not in the playoff race if not for Brandon Belt's bat at times throughout this season. And they certainly aren't in this playoff race if not for everything Kevin Kiermaier has done for them this year. But on the other side of that, I think people looked at Kiermaier when he was brought in as maybe a fourth outfield option. And now he's the starter and playing very well. And Brandon Belt, maybe a lefty off the bench. Oh no, he's DHing regularly when he's not hurt. They have, I don't want to say revitalized these careers, but I think they've allowed some of these guys to get one more good contract out of this. And that is a real good reputation to have when you're going out in free agency, especially when Bo Bichette's going to start costing more soon and Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to start costing a little bit more soon. To be able to go to those veterans and be like, hey, look, we have helped all of these guys come in here. We can help you and you can help us win as well. I think it's a nice reputation to start to have as a Blue Jays team going forward. And speaking of Vladdy, that there's been a lot of frustration with him this year, and that there is with me as well. You're waiting for him to take that extra step, and he just hasn't so far. And that's been incredibly frustrating to watch. But from a Blue Jay standpoint this weekend, he did a lot of little things that really helped this team win. He made a couple of good scoops on Ernie Clement throws from short, and Ernie Clement at short. It's been okay. But Bo Bichette should be back there, I would imagine, this week against the Texas Rangers. But that has been his defense. He made a couple of real good plays to help out the Blue Jays. And then on the bases, I know there's been a lot of dogging him for kind of showboating home runs that weren't, and not hustling out of the batter's box and those sorts of things. He made a phenomenal play, scoring from first in what ended up being a big moment for the Blue Jays earlier this weekend, where he's busting it from first, slides around the tag and scores. Like that is just an absolute all-out, balls-out hustle play that you would love to see more from him. But Vlad Guerrero Jr., I think, showed up in some small ways that helped out the Blue Jays in big ways this weekend. And now they have their biggest series of the season starting tonight against the Texas Rangers. So a lot more Blue Jays talk to come as we are getting into the nitty-gritty here into September. Closing out the show, we look at UFC 293. What the fuck? No one saw that coming in the way that it happened, as Sean Strickland beats Israel Adesanya 49-46s across the board to become the new UFC middleweight champion. Let's talk about the fight. First and foremost, let's talk about the fight. This was brilliance from Sean Strickland. There's so many different things to go into with this. The one thing I loved about Sean Strickland, and it kind of caught him in the second round, but overall, obviously, 49-46s across the board, he stuck to his game plan the whole way. There was not one moment in that fight where Sean Strickland got out of his game plan, got out of his mind, got too aggressive, not aggressive enough. Sean Strickland played the role of Sean Strickland perfectly for 25 minutes, and it ended up getting him the UFC's middleweight championship of the world. He was pressuring the whole time. I didn't get a chance to watch the fight live. I watched it this morning, actually. But my wife was seeing it at the bar. I was like, what happened? Like, was there a wild judging thing? Did he catch him a couple? Like, what happened? And she was just like, yeah, like, Adesanya was basically on like the outer sponsor ring the whole time. And when you watch the fight back, Yeah, that's basically it. Strickland was coming forward the entire fight. And Israel Adesanya, one of the most skilled strikers the sport has ever seen. Very good counter striker. But even just at home tonight, you'll look crazy. But just like backpedal around your room for 25 minutes. That gets tiring. And that's just without another 185-pound human trying to punch your brains in. So Strickland put Israel Adesanya on his back foot. And again, Izzy can strike well from everywhere. But having to do that for 25 minutes is fucking exhausting. And he had a great sense of the distance as well. He was catching Izzy's kicks early, but because he knew exactly how close he needed to be and how far away he needed to be, he was able to see a lot of those kicks coming, move out of the way. He was able to parry a lot of the jabs that Izzy was throwing from that Philly shell that we saw from Sean Strickland. And he just absolutely befuddled one of the best strikers this sport has ever seen for 25 minutes. And then offensively, he did enough, right? And that makes it sound a little bit derogatory, but the jab was working for him. He was landing impactful strikes when he could, but he wasn't loading up on any of those. The punch that rocks Izzy in the first round was just timed perfectly. There was no load up. There was nothing. It's just for people who always clamor and coaches, this is going to be a dream for them because they can show, look, if you just punch up the middle, it can be successful. It can work. It can be a championship winning strategy as it was for Sean Strickland. Those punches up the middle, not loaded up on nothing. Obviously, there's still force behind him. He is a rather in shape human being, but there was no load up there. There was no stopping and really none of that. It was just pop, pop. But the pop and then the second pop really popped him, and that almost set up a fight-ending sequence early on. Credit to Mark Goddard for not rushing in there a bit too much, but that was perfect timing. And then he did that all throughout the fight. There was no load up. It was so difficult for Izzy to counter, and he was starting to get it a little bit. But again, he's on his back foot the whole fight. Brilliance from Sean Strickland. And now you look at what is next. You won't hear me say this often. I agree with Daniel Cormier. Just a quick aside. Laura Senko was brilliant on commentary on Saturday night. I thought one of the best analyst jobs we've seen in the UFC in years and years and years. So shout out to her. But Daniel Cormier was right. I don't think Izzy gets an immediate rematch. You can get an immediate rematch when you've been one of the faces in the middleweight division for a long run and your long title reign comes to an end. That's not what this was. He had just won the title back in his last bout, and now he's lost it again. You don't get that immediate rematch a second time around. And not that Izzy has to go to the bottom and start working on the Contender Series, but Izzy needs at least one more fight before I think he gets his championship back. And now there's a couple of options for Sean Strickland, and we will do Fights to Make coming up on Friday's show, on Fights in Football Friday. But Dracus du Plessis kind of seemed like he was next in line and couldn't get things worked out. So Sean Strickland steps in and has a life-changing moment. Do you go with DDP next? You could. Paulo Costa against Khamzat Chimaev is coming up. If it were me, I would probably go du Plessis against Sean Strickland next and have Izzy take on the winner or loser of Paulo Costa against Khamzat Chimaev. Even if you wanted the winner of Paulo Costa and Khamzat to be next behind DDP and have Izzy face the loser of that bout. Back in the day, anyway, the UFC liked to go winner versus winner, loser versus loser. I think that's fallen off a little bit, but that would be an intriguing one for me. But yeah, this was incredibly surprising. I didn't think there was any world where Sean Strickland for basically 20 of 25 minutes outstruck Israel Adesanya. His coaching staff, I thought, rightly pointed out, like, you're kind of just watching in that second round, and he was able to put more on. But Israel Adesanya was just never allowed the opportunity to plant and really throw and get anything behind his punches, while Sean Strickland worked it to a T. And a beautiful strategy wins him the UFC's middleweight championship. That is going to do it for the show today, everyone. Thank you all so much for tuning in. For those of you watching, like this video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, as always, share it. That kind of stuff really does help, so please do that. If you're listening in podcast form, rate, review, subscribe wherever you can. We are basically going to be Monday through Friday through the football season. There will be some times where we'll have to combine a couple of things into one, but through the football season anyway, we are going to be Monday through Friday. Also, starting next week, our NHL preview is back, and the NBA preview will not be far behind. We got Blue Jays coming up. CFL content is going to continue. What a weekend for the Edmonton Elks. We won't talk about what happened to my Saskatchewan Roughriders, but we have a lot to cover in the sports world. As always, you can find me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. I'm at Prime Primetime Klein. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, I'm at Primetime Klein. Twitch.tv/PrimetimePK. And you can email the show couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. Coming up on the show tomorrow, Monday Night Football reactions. We will have a waiver wire look for fantasy football. And one thing I'm going to do this year, kind of brought it back last year, but really bad fantasy football team that would have beat yours. We're going to look at that again this season. So that is all coming up on the show tomorrow. Wednesday, it'll be CFL Power Rankings. Thursday, we are going to have more NFL content as we get ready for the Thursday Nighter, as well as have NFL Power Rankings. So all that leads into a pick per game, on Friday, and some more UFC reaction on Fights and Football Friday. And there's a big UFC card coming up this weekend with Alexa Grasso taking on Valentina Shevchenko. So it never ends in the world of sports. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you all later.